Okay, hi, I'm Mackenzie. I'm one of the directors at Vertitech Incorporated, a Canadian corporation that tries to make your life better through green technology. And I want to introduce our flagship product, which is the plastic free borosilicate glass stovetop coffee percolator branded as the Nonna. This has been a very popular product on Amazon. We've sold 200 units in our first month. People are really excited to be able to enjoy plastic free coffee, but there's some confusion about how to use this because it's a little bit of an older technology. There's some updates that we added to this to make it easier to use to get a kind of plastic free brew. And we're going to unbox it together today, and I'm going to brew some coffee so you could see exactly how to use this. So let's start with the unboxing, or let's take a look at the box. So on the front, we have the photo of the Nonna, some benefits down here, how much it fits, which is 50 fluid ounces or 1.5 liters of water. We can see the instructions on this side where you fill it up with water, and we'll talk about where the fill line is in a second. It's not marked, but you'll be able to figure it out. Then you just simply boil the coffee, and then the coffee's brewed. And we've got Penny assisting here, so that's beautiful. Our contact information is on the back of the box, and then there's some descriptive text on the side, both in English and French. As a Canadian corporation, we are legally obligated to do so, even though most of our customers are American. So when you open up the box, right at the top, there's some safety information to let you know how to safely use this product. You must ensure that the lid is securely fastened before pouring. For added safety, use a towel to hold the lid in place as it may become hot during brewing. Very true. And in fact, in my personal prototype, I actually broke the lid because I didn't hold it with a towel and it slipped right off. So do use a towel on top of the lid while you're using it. The glass and metal components of this percolator may become hot during brewing. Always use the handle and exercise caution. So this handle here, on this side, this is the main innovation of the Nonna. This used to be attached by a steel collar moving around the unit. And what would happen is the thermal expansion coefficient between the borosilicate glass and the steel collar were different. The steel would expand at a faster rate. So this would reduce the tension between the steel collar and the item. So when you pick it up, it would slide out of its collar. So we fixed that by using a single material all the way through. So this expands at the same rate as everything else. This doesn't get hot, but because there's a smooth gradation of the heat through this item, it's a much more secure connection. So this is a much safer product to use than the old style. This is not for use on induction cooktops. This product is not compatible with induction cooktops. Please ensure it's used on appropriate heat sources. We attempt to fix this with this item. This is the next item on top. And I will unpackage this for you so you can see it a little bit clearer. We have kind of like a clover leaf metal wire. And so the idea here is that this item would go onto your heating surface, your induction heating surface. And this is not induction. This is a normal kind of electric resistance stovetop. But if you did have induction, then this steel wire would be the thing that gets hot. And you could put this inside or outside of the Nonna. I don't have an induction cooktop. I haven't been able to test it, but we include this for your own kind of experimentation to see if it works on an induction cooktop. If you don't, just return it, right? Like we're working on a way to get this to work with induction, but we haven't sorted it out yet. We're gonna have to like somehow mold copper or some kind of ferrous material to the bottom. Lots of R&D to go into that. So for right now, if you have an induction, this isn't gonna work for you, but it might with this ring. Avoid sudden temperature changes. Do not expose the percolator to sudden temperature changes. For example, pouring cold water into a hot percolator, as this may cause the glass to crack. That thermal expansion we were talking about earlier, rapid temperature changes, change the size of the material. So changing that size, especially with something fragile like borosilicate glass, can cause damage. Keep it out of reach of children. It's glass. Children shouldn't be playing with it. The handle may become hot. It typically doesn't, but if you leave it on for a long time, it might. And allow to cool before cleaning. Again, as mentioned previously, you don't want to be mixing hot glass with cold water because that thermal expansion might cause some damage to the material. Hand wash is recommended. Part of that is the stainless steel components. You don't really want to be running them through the dishwasher over and over because they're not coated to prevent against kind of degradation inside of the dishwasher. So like hand wash, hand dry, it's regular stainless steel. Make sure it doesn't stay wet for too long. Use as directed. This percolator is intended for brewing coffee. Misuse may lead to damage or injury. So that means don't use this for cooking drugs, essentially. You could make tea with it. You could make soup with it if you wanted, but really it's for brewing coffee. So just stick to that and you'll have the best time possible. All right, so that's the safety information. So we use a lot of styrofoam in order to make sure that this is safe. Styrofoam on the top, keeping everything in. Borosilicate glass lid. This is an assembly that we call the coffee reservoir. in bubble wrap. And this is composed of a filled stainless steel. This is the top. And then there's a perforated bottom. And so these perforations, this allows the coffee to drip through the reservoir back down into the main reservoir. So I'll put this to the side for now. Here is the stem. And we had a complaint about this recently. In a typical construction, in the old style construction, there was a hole in the very top, this area here. What we've done differently is to drill holes into the side, and this allows like a higher throughput of the water at the expense of like less pressure. But in essence, the coffee does boil faster with this construction, plus it's a little bit cheaper, so we pass those savings on to you. There's also a lip for the coffee reservoir to rest on. And then this side is hollow. This is where the water enters through the pipe to come out at the top and filter through the rest of the coffee. Finally, this unit we call the water reservoir, and this is where the water lives. So there's no markings on this. There's no branding, there's no graduated markings. It's completely clear glass. And so you need to know how much do you fill this up? And the answer to that question is actually based on the stem. Because the stem holds the coffee on the top lip, you can use the bottom of the stem as a fill line. So I'll fill this with water right now. Somewhere about there should be good. You see how the water is just touching the bottom of that lip? This is a full pot. You don't have to use this much water, but this fills it up and allows you to make the most coffee. So next we have the coffee reservoir. You just take this lid off, and then you put the coffee reservoir onto the stem. And that bottom, that perforated part, clips on, so you don't have to like hold it in place while you're dropping it in. Next is the coffee that you use. Some people do get confused about this. We've had some returns because people were using the wrong kind of coffee. Here you can take a look at the grain size of the coffee that I use. Go like this. So what I do to get this coffee is I actually go to Starbucks. I just get normal Starbucks. This is Siren Blend coffee, and I ask them to grind it for drip. So if you go into a Starbucks and say, hey, grind this coffee for drip, that's going to be the perfect grain size for the Nonna. And then the ratio is a little different than kind of like a traditional drip brew machine because of the percolation. But typically what I like to do is for every cup, which is approximately 250 milliliters or 1/4 of a liter, and remember there's 1.5 liters, so that's 6 cups. For every cup of water, I do half a tablespoon. So because I've got 6, I'm going to put 3 scoops inside of the reservoir. This is decaf, by the way. I love the way that coffee tastes, so I make a lot of decaf in the day so I don't get caffeine poisoning. So we put the filled lid on the top, always on the top, which just kind of increases the pressure inside of the coffee reservoir so the water boils faster and it percolates more throughout a cycle. Put the lid on. And on my stove, I actually have like a 3 unit. It like gets wider and wider, so I'm just going to turn on the center unit to high, and that will allow me to spend the least amount of electricity possible to boil this. And now we wait. Okay, so yeah, after that quick little time lapse of the coffee percolating, we're done. So I've got the unit here. It is hot. I've got a microfiber cloth to hang on to the lid. So what we're going to do, test the handle. It's not hot as usual, right? Especially because I used a small element in order to heat it. And the other director is behind the camera right now, and he gave me a technique, a little tip and trick to get this working. So I'm going to have my coffee cup there, and I'm going to have to unfortunately turn my back to you to get this done. But basically what we do is we pick up the lid with our rag, and then we can use the lip of the lid in order to hold the center of the stem. And this reduces motion of the coffee reservoir, and sometimes the coffee reservoir can move forward and intercept the water coming out of the water reservoir. So if we hold it in place with the lid, then we get less kind of push through of the coffee reservoir, so we get a clearer cup of coffee. I like my coffee with cream. Let's take a look together. With percolators, sometimes there's a little bit of grounds that get into the coffee, but this one, I can't really rotate it. Let me take a couple sips here. But there's no grounds on the surface of the coffee because we used that lid technique, and also we didn't overfill the coffee reservoir. I gotta let it cool down a little. It's very hot. There was one more tip that we were talking about during the time lapse, which is the coffee reservoir. If you wet that perforated sheet, I'll pull one out so we can take a look at it together. All right, bang. So this thing, the perforation, the holes are machined to 1.3 millimeters. So what you could do is actually put water on this plane. If you just like wet it before the coffee grounds go in, there's going to be water in between the perforations. So there will be surface tension on these holes that won't be broken until there's enough pressure inside of the coffee reservoir. So if you wet it a little bit beforehand, before putting your coffee in, then less grounds will get through the perforations into the main water reservoir. Okay, I think we're able to look a little bit closer. As you can see from the surface, there are no coffee grounds in this cup of coffee. That's been one of the major concerns. People are worried about kind of particulate getting into their cup. And I find that doesn't happen, especially not with the first two cups. I also happen to have like very large mugs. Like my mugs fit probably the size of 2 to 3 mugs that you might have at home. You know, as the director of Vertitech, there's some other things that I have to do in my day. I'm not always like, I work from home. I'm not always in and out of the kitchen to get coffee. So I do just have large mugs where I could drink it all day. And it's nice because it stays really hot for a long time. So I get to drink it all day. Similar kind of behavior if you have like a thermos, right? Like your coffee should be hot all day and tasty all day from this. And I think the most important thing is that it is plastic-free coffee. We got some other complaints like the size. It is quite large. I'm quite a large man. I'm 6'6" actually, so I'm getting framed out of the thing here. And the reason for that is because I'm taller than 98% of the planet. And so you can see next to me, this thing even looks like quite sizable, right? Like this is like kind of a large unit. So you do need a little bit of premium space in order to store it. But it does generally fit just like into a cabinet. So we can see here. It's approximately the size of a teapot. So it is large, but that gets you lots of coffee. Stem can break with rough handling, but that's just like anything else, right? Like if you're not careful with your tools, they could break on you. This is glass too, it's fragile. That's how we get you plastic-free coffee.
This doesn't make a proper cup of coffee no matter how long you boil it. It is very weak.
That depends on how much coffee you put into the coffee reservoir. I find that if you do boil it for a long time, it can wind up stronger than drip coffee.
It takes so long for the water to come out of the front in the coffee grounds. At a rolling boil, it took at least 7 minutes for it to start to grow. I do not like the design.
It does take a long time. Nothing to say to that, but it is plastic-free.
Difficult to pour, percolator clips on heat trivet.
Are they talking about the clover? That complaint may have been misusing this item. This is generally not necessary for proper use.
Coffee grounds in the coffee. The coffee boiled over onto the stove because there is nothing keeping the lid on and the coffee contained.
I am frankly confused about how they managed to do that. Maybe they overfilled the reservoir. So the coffee was kind of or the water was above the coffee reservoir. That might cause something like that. But as long as you use the stem fill line, we shouldn't see anything like that happening.
Item was not made of glass.
Item is indeed made of glass.
Holes prevent the usual forcing water up tube. Tube is blocked at usual exit at top. Instead, drilled 4 holes. Hole at bottom should not be there. It prevents proper percolation through top of tube.
So let's take a look at this stem and we'll see what this fellow's talking about. We mentioned it earlier in this video. So rather than having a hole at the top here, there's 3 holes on the side, and that's for direct kind of injection into the coffee reservoir in 3 different directions. He's also talking about this hole here, which he thinks is preventing normal percolation, but it's important to let the pressure kind of diffuse at the bottom this way, but most of the water does go up this kind of central pipe. So I think he was frustrated because we advertise this product as like this is a recreation of the old style, but we do have a number of improvements based on kind of modern physics, engineering, and production capability. Okay, so that's how to use the Nonna. Those are some of the largest complaints that we've had on our product so far, and over 200 sales in our first month of operation. As you can see, it's fairly easy to use. It just does take some time. And I understand that time is a luxury, and this is a luxury product, right? Like being able to have plastic-free coffee and having the time to have a slow morning in order to do something that is healthful and reasonable, can take a little bit more time than kind of other methods of cafe preparation. If you want coffee fast, you might as well use instant, right? This isn't the product for you. If you want it to come together quickly, if you want it to be ridiculously strong and fast and cheap, you're better off going to Starbucks. But if you want to have a slow Sunday morning and drink plastic-free coffee on your patio and watch the sunrise, then the Nonna is going to be a really good product for you.